Hello, Washington fans, and happy Thanksgiving, and welcome to another episode of the Washington Wrap. If you're unfamiliar with this format, this is a single issue, 10-minute per episode show where we start a countdown clock and try to sink our teeth into and wrap up one issue within 10 minutes. And given that it's Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving is always the time for friendly and sometimes not so friendly family disagreements and family debates, on this episode, what we're looking at is what is the future of the quarterback position for this team? Because we're at an interesting junction now. Taylor Heinicke's playing pretty well. We haven't really seen Fitzpatrick this year. The draft class doesn't look great. Maybe it's okay, maybe it's not. So we're going to start the clock. I'm going to bring in my good pal, Felix Trammell, and we're really going to sink our teeth into this. So let's have some fun with it. So 10 minutes going on the clock. Welcome, Felix. And first things first. Taylor Heinicke, does he have a future on the Washington football team? And if so, what does that future entail for
him? Yes, he definitely has a future on this team. I believe his future going forward is spot starter backup. The team has no issue with playing him, which I think is clearly evident because at no time have they even thought about going to Kyle Allen. Like there's not been a thought. So they've allowed him to play through some twerks and some kinks and issues. In the last couple of weeks, he's played a lot better. So I definitely think they will retain him and keep him around in the future. That does mean I still think they address the position, but I think Taylor Heinicke is definitely in the running as a spot starter, maybe even a transitional starter, but definitely a backup for Washington moving forward.
Well, if he is a backup, let's talk about who he's a backup to. And I'll start by saying, and this is the Thanksgiving hot take debate issue show. So I'm going to start with a potentially hot take. I'll tell you who I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be Aaron Rodgers. And just before anyone worries, it's not because of, what's going on off the field with him this year. It's because he's going to be 39 next season. And I'm sick of these, even as, as good as Aaron Rodgers is, I'm sick of these quarterbacks with no future. I want a quarterback who can be here for at least 5 years of in his prime play. We're not going to get that with Aaron Rodgers. And I know we've seen Tom Brady go down to Tampa and win a Super Bowl with them, and the argument is, well, it's all worth it if you get a Super Bowl. And it's like, yeah, it is, and I get it. But Aaron Rodgers is not Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the exception, not the rule. I don't want Tom Brady. I don't want Aaron Rodgers. I also don't want Tom Brady, but that's a different story. Mainly because I don't think that's on the card, so it's not worth debating. So where's your head at when you hear that I don't want Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I get the reasons why you don't want Aaron Rodgers. I would take Aaron Rodgers today because I think the way the NFL is structured, you've got to strike when the iron's hot. I don't think there's going to be many dynasties moving forward. So if you have the ability to put a run together and get a Super Bowl, I think you have to do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. And if Aaron Rodgers becomes available, which he will, because I think him and Green Bay are done with whatever they're going to be, if they can get him, I would be all in. But I don't think they would be able to get him. I think he goes more out west, closer to where he's from. Not necessarily, he's played in cold weather his whole life. He probably doesn't want to play in. We don't really have cold weather here, but we kind of have miserable weather. So I think he'll go somewhere else. But if the opportunity avails itself, I think it will. I still think the team goes after a free agent quarterback more than they attack the draft. And people are not going to like that. But I think that's just how Coach Rivera thinks. And that's how this team is actually built for. It's built for a veteran quarterback. So I don't think we're going to draft top 10 because I think we're going to win some games going out and maybe even make the playoffs. So I think we're going to be middle of the pack in the draft. I don't see us trading up to get any of these guys. So I think free agency is going to be the route that we take.
Yep. And you and I have spoken about this before, and, I'm on the record. There's 3 free agent, quote-unquote, veteran quarterbacks who I think Ron Rivera would have circled because they're likely or they are going to be available this offseason. That's Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky, and Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm on record. You've seen me tweet it saying that I think Marcus Mariota would fit well in this system and look good in Burgundy and Gold. Um, a system next year where someone like Mariota or Trubisky or even Garoppolo is the starter and Heinicke is the backup. Is that going to be enough to make this team successful? And will the fans accept it? Because there's a big subsection of fans on social media, at the very least, who seem to think it's a rookie quarterback or it's nothing. And this draft class isn't really built for that to equip us for success, because the rookies in this draft class, and we can talk about this a little bit more, I don't think any of them, from the top two or three, which is Willis and Corrall and stuff, I don't think any of them are ready to start next year. These are all rookies who need a year holding a clipboard before they really are thrown into the deep end of starting in the NFL.
I've been on the Mariota train. I think I was on the Mariota train before you were last season, thinking that he would be good for Scott Turner's offense. And I think he would be with his mobility. And right now, Oakland uses him just for his mobility to run the ball. I think that would add a tick to the offense that we don't have, that mobility. Plus, he has a stronger arm than what Heinicke has to offer.
Yep.
I'm not high on Trubisky, or I'm just not high on Trubisky. I think with him, it takes a total reset, and that'll take time. And if that's what's going to be, then Taylor Heinicke is going to be your starter. So I think that kind of leaves you where you are right now today. You just have a better backup than Kyle Allen. Garoppolo, I think his biggest thing is health. So if he becomes a starter, then it's going to almost be similar to knowing Fitzpatrick's your starter. Taylor Heinicke is going to start some games because Garoppolo has not shown the ability to stay healthy. And so if I had to pick of those three, I would definitely lean Mariota. He's younger. He offers more mobility, and I think he has the strongest arm out of the three. Garoppolo would be as if everything's kind of ready to go and you've built a roster around him. And then lastly would be Trubisky, because I think he's going to take a major reconstruction of how he plays quarterback to be effective.
Yeah, and he's less of a fit for the Scott Turner offense, as we've come to understand it as well. I agree with that. So let's talk about some of these rookies real quick, because, some of the early mock drafts are coming out, and the WalterFootball.com draft, for example, which is one of the bigger mock drafts, and they update it frequently throughout the college season. The past couple of updates for them, they've all had us taking Matt Corral, and they've had us taking him around the pick 10 range. Now, I think I agree with you. I don't think Washington will be picking around the 10 range. I think we'll win a couple of games and we'll slide down into the middle of the pack, regardless of what happens. But the fact that we're getting the second quarterback off the board in that range tells you a lot about these quarterbacks in this draft class. They're not well rated. They're not studs. They're, I've seen a lot of sort of draft analysts say that if these quarterbacks were in last year's draft class, none of them would be first round picks, things like that. So because of that, it's a bad time to need a quarterback in the draft. Will Washington look at taking and reaching on a first round quarterback because they just need one? Or do you think we're going to see them look in the second or third round for a quarterback that they can groom for a year and hope develops into something?
If I would think the latter, I would think they would get somebody later. I still think the roster has holes you need to fill. I think you, in this draft, in that first round, you might, if there's a playmaking receiver or a good cornerback or a safety, that should be the pick in the first round, because that's someone who can contribute right away. I'm on record. I like Pickett the best. If we were able to get Pickett, I wouldn't mind him starting day one. Corrall, I think, will be a decent NFL quarterback. So if he's available around our range, I think that's fine. But none of the other quarterbacks move the needle for me. Willis is an athlete, but would have to learn a position. And that means reconfiguring your whole offense, which I'm not sure Scott Turner wants to do or Coach Rivera wants to do. Sam Howell, I see a lot of Baker Mayfield in him, but not the good traits of Baker Mayfield, if there are any, but that's another story.
Those ads are okay.
Yeah, I mean, his commercials are decent. That's the Texas fan in me. But I just don't see a lot out of this class. You saw it went from Spencer Rattler being the hottest thing going to he got benched.
Yeah.
So it's nothing there that moves the needle. So I don't feel like just because Taylor Heinicke right now is middle of the pack I'm just looking on ESPN. He's about 16th, 17th rated quarterback. That's middle of the pack.
Yeah.
So if you're drafting a guy and they're not going to be better than that, then why take that guy in that position?
It's a fair question.
That you have other things you can fill that with someone who can get on the field in day one and contribute.
Yeah.
So you can find a guy in the later rounds that you can kind of coach around and build up. But that's why I still think this team goes the free agent route and not drafting.
Yeah, I agree. And, in that free agent route, we think of Marcus Mariota as still young. We think of Taylor Heinicke as still young. They're essentially the same age, Mariota and Heinicke. Mariota's been in the NFL the entire time. Heinicke's bounced around a bit, but, they're the same age. They just have different mileage on the legs. Last thing I'll say before we have to wrap this up is in the draft, I think Carson Strong is going to be a draft riser. He's having a hell of a season. His stats are fantastic, and he looks like he can play, but again, it's someone who's probably going to need some time on the sidelines. But anyway, that is 10 minutes. We are done. This has been a pretty amicable, a pretty friendly Thanksgiving debate. No plates of food thrown, no storming out like that Cowboys fan we saw on social media, ready to fight their whole family, which was fantastic. Loved that we have salty Cowboys fans after they lost to the Raiders on Thanksgiving.
It's the best feeling.
It makes Thanksgiving just chef's kiss. Love it.
Yes.
Felix Trammell, always a pleasure talking Washington football with you, my friend. Hope you and your family had a good Thanksgiving, and everyone out there, I hope you also had a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. It's interesting, Thanksgiving is clearly not a thing here in Australia, but because I've got so many friends and family and so many followers and listeners out there, I've become very, very aware of it. So, from my family and friends down here in Australia in our spring and summertime, happy Thanksgiving to you guys as you approach your winter. Let's see how we go on Monday night against the Seahawks. No preview episode this week because of the Monday night situation, but hopefully this was a bit of fun with Thanksgiving. Felix, love you, buddy. Always a pleasure, and we'll see you next time.